Well, with Diablos definitely being something more of a step up, I should say, at least with their first impressions anyway, with what they've been doing to Fairy Tail. I mean, even when we think about these characters, like, extremely early on, you look at them compared to, like, what exactly the first impressions we had of, say, a few other, like, Dark Guilds, and even, like, our final villains, like what we had with the Spriggans, like, I compare this a lot more to, say, like, what we had with Brandish when she first appeared, when we first ever saw, like, any inklings when it was, like, against them, and, like, Argiel, and, like, all those characters, and I'm thinking, like, if we had, like, this kind of a little bit more of a ferocity, against with these characters, I think, like, a lot more people would have cared about the villains. If they at least actually was able to take a few people down, apart from, like, oh, like, here's a couple of fake deaths here and there, then I feel like, if anything, like, this kind of reminded me of, like, gave me, at least anyway, of how, like, they're being treated. This gave me very early Arasion Sace vibes, where it was like, oh, these guys are actually, like, slightly serious, and they can wipe the, like, they can destroy, like, the villains, and, like, you know, be a little bit of a reminder of, like, hey, get good, you think you're serious shit? Because they do some stuff in this chapter, like, where it's like, oh, wow, they just took care of the 3 strongest people in the group and then some. So, with this chapter, at least, and all that, I was kind of a little bit more excited about this one. So, let's talk a little bit about, yeah, how things are going for Team Fairy Tail. So, one thing to mention as well is that Natsu's fight was completely off-screen, which is weird to say that the main, like, character's fight got off-screen compared to what we saw of, like, oh, I don't know, like, the rest of the characters of, like, the whole big cast. Like, one thing that we know, like, noticed with this chapter and all that, because it focused more on, like, everything that was going on with, like, you know, Kiria, like, was seeing a lot more of her abilities, and the fact of the matter is that we actually able to see one of her techniques finally, whereas, like, more of her roar, whereas, like, when we see, like, immediately she's, like, stepping on Urza, and she's, like, there, like kind of crying, is, like, you can even see it's, like, everyone's, like, you know, like, you cut off her strength, and it's like, wait, so you were able to, like, somehow cut away her mental fortitude of some kind, like, that's somehow her ability, because she's, like, stepping on it, like, she's, like, crushing on Urza's head with her heels, and, like, even as well, like, you know, we can see with this is, like, Wendy is, like, get away from her, using Dragon Force immediately, and charging into, like, here, and it's like, oh, this one's a Dragon Slayer as well, let's go in, and immediately it was, like, Charlotte and Lucy used this as an opportunity, like, Lucy using her Virgo form, like, actually kind of cleverly, whereas, like, she was able to actually create a pitfall, whereas, like, she's able to use it to get them trapped, and it was like, oh, I'm gonna, like, just immediately break away from this, because we see that, like, when she uses this, this tearing roar of the Blade Dragon, she just explodes the area around her, like, using, like, this chance and all that, like, just cuts everyone, so it's able to make a little blade, waves, even when she just screams, like, so this immediately, like, is able to knock Lucy and Charlotte out this end, Wendy having to defend herself and all that, like with Urza, whereas, like, Urza's still just, like, out of this, fight completely, not to mention as well that even, like, the Water God was able, like, had to protect Caramel, like, immediately. He was like, this is my first, like, kind of thing, because she seemingly doesn't have, like, that much of an ability, or she's not that strong comparative, like, to this person, where she's like, and Kiria's just there, like, there's nothing I can't cut. She's, like, licking her lips. And then we go and turn back to Gray's fight, where he's going against the leader, Diablos, where, alright, enough of this shit. He's, like, trying to use his abilities, where it's like, it's not working, because he is just turning everything he has to ash. He's like, alright then. Pulling out, like, the Demon Slayer mode and all that with, like, his devil magic, like that, and he's, like, using one of his known techniques on there, and he's like, oh, what the hell? Like, he throws all the sea around him, and then he uses the Zereth longsword on him, seemingly freezing the guy, and it was like, oh, we was able to defeat him and all that, and he's like, oh, no, not exactly and all that, because he's able to actually turn it like ocean or the ice. He's like, no matter what, as long as it has a form, I can turn it into ash. And this is where, like, he uses one of his abilities, which is like the absolute ash of the Skull Dragon, which he's like, now at this point, making like the entire sea into ash. He's actually absorbing it, and he's just like, oh, you're just gonna crumble to dust. And this is when, like, Gray uses his strongest, alright, I need to use my strongest thing I have up my arsenal, and he does, like, the silver technique on there, and he's just like, I'm freezing everything around it to prevent this. And he's just like, alright, you're a demon, that's kind of interesting. Our staple, though, food is dragons, not demons, so yeah, forgive me for not eating from the dinner table with this, where he uses seemingly what his strongest technique is, Black Ash. Which, I know people are immediately like, oh my god, they just killed a cat. No, they didn't kill it. Come on, how many times have we seen this shit where it's like, no, that's not the case. Where you see Gray disappear. You see him, like, kind of disintegrating, like, on there, so we don't know what happened to Gray at the moment, whereas, like, they're not going to kill him off in, like, regardless if it's a sequel or a spin-off like on there, if they wasn't going to kill him in the final arc, or any of the series, they weren't going to do it now. Like, so, if anything, his body may actually be gone, or, like, disintegrate at some point, but I'm sure they will find a way to bring Gray back out of this scenario. So, again, and that's the problem, where it's happened so many goddamn times in the series, where it's just like, it can, like, whenever it happens, like, at least with Natsu, you come back to him and it's like, oh, Mamo just completely just, like, destroyed Natsu off screen on there, like, and I know a lot of people saying, well, if he wasn't sick or anything, that he'd have the advantage on there. It's like, even still, like, Natsu did not really use his head in this one. He was just like, oh, I'll just keep punching, and that will be the way I fight against him. I mean, like, even using, like, the Fire Dragon King ability wasn't enough for him, and they're all smirking and smiling, where it's just like, oh, was this really what they got right now? And it's like, you didn't read your opponents, and you guys got... This is exactly where it's like, this is something where it's like, I liked Inuyasha on Seis, where it's like, oh, Fairy Tail thought they were becoming hot shit, and then they got immediately their asses trounced. Same thing happened very early on when they went to Tenrojima, where it was like, oh, you guys think you're fucking good enough for S-class stuff? Alright then, here's Grimoire Heart. Deal with these guys. Deal, like, when you're on Tenrojima, and it's like, you guys, like, no matter what, it's like, consider how incredibly lucky you are. And I feel like that's just a lot of the, like, villains and some of the opponents, like, we talk about Grand Magic games when their rivals going against them. We talk about, like, even as well with Tyrus, where it's like, Tyrus felt like a little bit more of a serious deal, but it was slightly coming back to that. But I think of the Spriggans, and it's like, the Spriggans were supposed to be, you know, like, Zera's strongest warriors. They were supposed to be, like, his echelon of elites, and it's like, these guys that we've never once heard about from a different continent, like these Dragon Slayers, and it was like even think about, like, these guys that eat dragons or living, it's like, they are more powerful than what we've seen, like, compared to, and they are a third party getting involved, where it's like, if this is how they're dealing with, like, how are they gonna, like, fare against real dragon? And it makes me wonder as well, because, again, like, whether or not how long this story is going to last for or not and all that, this is definitely more of a show compared to, like, Kiria was able to beat up on, like, even though it's like they're saying, like, oh, Urza might be able to have the hand on her, it's like she actually pulled on, but it's like, they used their abilities correctly and caught them off guard. They had a lot of, like, people that they were trying to protect. Even the fact with, like, you had, like, Wendy trying to go in, she was not able to defeat this. Urza still got cocky, and look what happened to her. She got made a fool of on here. It's like the Water Dragon God as well couldn't even do this since he can't control his powers anymore. Where it's like, look what happened to him. Where it's like he had to go and protect his little whatever, like, a love interest, or whatever you want to call her, like, on there. It's just like, and then the last part of the chapter where it's like we finally turn back to Magnolia, where it's just like, oh, interesting enough, it's like it's all raining and everything, and people are saying like, oh, well, they're blaming Julia, which was like, oh, that's a nice reference. It's like, no, this isn't me. I'm telling you, it's not my fault on there. One little interesting thing about this though was Gaggia was like immediately like trying to check on Levi, and oh no, they've kind of, you know, they've had a falling out since that whole little situation. And it was like, yeah, you kind of dug yourself in this whole Gaggia. Well done. You've kind of made yourself into this little bit of the shit stain, which ends up with Toka leading in this reign, and Jalal found her. Immediately it was like, interesting enough, with Jalal's new design in this one, one thing to say and note of this one, which a few people I saw caught note on there, and I think it was good to notice it as well, is that his new design is actually just the original. I think it's Seagrain's original outfit from Raid Master, so Yeah, no, he just full on becomes Seagrain at this point, which I was like, oh, that's a cool little thing on there, because, I mean, regardless, he was, like, kind of the same design. He loves that character. Like, same thing as well, like, we've got someone like that in Eden Zero as well, and it's just like, it's this one character design he just loves throughout his series just to keep coming back and forth on. But, yeah, so now that like the white mage has been found out, how is that gonna go? Are we now just going to go straight back to Team B side now? And how is really going to, like, because I think her reaction to it is going to be like, oh well, you caught me, yeah, no, time to kind of make my getaway, or it's either going to lead into a very serious situation where it's like, well then, because we don't know her agenda yet, we don't know why she's like, she just keeps talking about Natsu, and it's like, what's your whole deal with Natsu? Or, like, the relationship with, like, you're the white mage, like, Toka, also as well, someone that's, like, similar to Xerath and all that. Is like, well, what was your entire situation? Where have you been? She's I feel like she's gonna be like, I was watching you people, and it's like, if you got eaten by Acnologia, that was your own fate. But I saw something in those people, and also as well, we still don't know how her and Natsu met. So a few things to kind of bring up onto like this little person, because regardless of what, it's like it's a sequel, spin-off, whatever you want to call it. They're adding some very important pieces where it's like you're setting up someone that is supposed to be Xerath's equal. We're talking as well about Diablos, who are supposed to be some of the, like, they're a new form of Dragon Slayers. Like, they're a new generation that, weirdly enough, we're getting a lot of goddamn generations of Dragon Slayers. You know, we got the first generation, you know, Natsu, Wendy, Gaji, and all them. You got the second, which is, like, Larxus and Cobra. Third generation is what we've been, you know, pretty much overall been seeing with. We've got the fourth generation, which I believe is the movies. I think the movies, the fourth generation of Dragon Slayers, where it's like they're just the Lacrima, like, and they ain't got any will or anything like that. And then also we got this fifth generation as well, where it's like we've got a lot of Dragon Slayers like coming into it. And it's like the more and more that you kind of think about it, where it's like how much further can we even turn up the like exactly these people. And also as well, interesting to note as well, since we mentioned with Eden Zero, going to be mentioning it with Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest as well, is that the fact is we've got a brand new image already for the new volume, the first one that's going to be coming out, and nothing too special. It shows Toka, it shows Natsu, you know, it shows Fairy Tail Team A for the most part. So I'm curious to see what volume 2 is going to be going when we start seeing a little bit more of Diablos and a little bit more. But this, I enjoyed this chapter because it finally made me feel like, oh, we've finally got an intimidating opponent, and it really should have been Spriggans. I would have replaced these guys like in a heartbeat for the Spriggans. And it's like another issue that comes up with the Spriggans, where it's like I think there are honestly just too many of them. Like, you think about it, it's like how many the 12 Spriggans that they had, and like how many of them actually had time to develop as characters and not just be, I'm just the big wall that you have to get through, and how a lot of those fights are written out. And then, like, you had, like, out of all of them, like, Brandish probably came out the best out of them. Like, you had Irene as well. Like, you had, like, a few of the characters on that. Like, probably, like, maybe, if anything, 4 of them came out fine, and then the others were either mixed or fucking horrible, like Jacob was, where it's like, there's nothing to these characters. Like, so overall, I'm curious to see what people think so far about Diablos, and it's like, should these guys have actually been, or at least cut like the Spriggans in half and then have something more intimidating like that, or what are you just gonna do? I don't know, I'm very personally curious. But that is all for me. Thanks always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.